We're going to do an artificial intelligence primer. So Eros is going to kick us off talking about types of AI, use cases, of the capabilities, not only in terms of what we can do today, what's coming, but we'll see a little bit of that. He'll also then convert that to ServiceNow and AI. So for those of you that also have ServiceNow, that part's going to resonate well. It'll start giving you a flavor of the things and the kind of art of the possible with ServiceNow. But then we're going to shift. And Eros will pass the mic over to Joe Markwith. Joe is part of our digital transformation team. Joe is going to talk about mastering AI operational transformation. Joe doesn't care if you've got ServiceNow. Joe doesn't care what products you're using. All those technologies will be important when a solution is developed. Joe's going to take us at a higher level and share a lot of good information about what this transformational journey could and should look like. And then Eros will bring it home and kind of put a wrapper around it. He'll talk specifically about how we're taking that AI operational transformation journey that Joe will be talking about and make it relevant for folks that maybe do have ServiceNow as the enterprise service management platform. What does a crawl, walk, run look like if you do that? And we'll talk about next steps. So on that, I've been talking about these guys, so I think it's about time we get the mic in their hands. So Eros is going to kick us off. Eros and I have worked together for many, many years. His focus has always been around not just the technology, but the solutions that we create here at CDW for our customers built on those technologies. And then Joe, who I talked to you about, he is kind of a peer of ours across the aisle. While Joe does things other than ServiceNow, Eros and I and Kelly, who's on this call, we're ServiceNow specific, but we're all part of CDW. We're delighted you're here, and we're ready to roll. So Eros, with that, I'm going to let you say hello, and we'll get you started.
Thank you, John. Hello, guys. I think we've got some great content for you today. So to start, I want to just talk a little bit about the different types of AI that are out there and kind of where we're at today and where we're going tomorrow. So the most basic kind of AI out there is what is called reactive AI. And when I think of reactive AI, I like to think of Deep Blue, so IBM's AI. And it really originally became famous for being really, really good at chess. So some of you will probably remember this when it started beating all the different chess masters that are out there. That's what the types of things that reactive AI is really good at. So it's really good at classification and pattern recognition. And when there are a ton of scenarios, it can think through and make calculations a lot faster than human beings can. So because of this, it can seem really, really intelligent, but only a very specific task. Now, reactive AI was fun, but we've kind of moved from that into what we call limited memory AI. And while reactive AI was good at really simple tasks, limited memory AI is able to do more things. So when we look at things like self-driving cars or ChatGPT and all the things that we're doing with generative AI today, this falls into that bucket of limited memory AI. And it's really good at making predictions based on historical data. So that's kind of the big difference is you have an AI that's better able to do more tasks than a reactive AI because it was able to digest like these huge amounts of historical data and then use that to make future predictions. So it can seem like it knows what it's talking about in a lot of different areas. The next step after that is what we call theory of the mind AI. So this is AI that's able to understand motivation behind questions in a way that it's able to explore context and learn with fewer examples and be more useful. Most people don't think we're there yet. I think we're getting kind of close, but here's a great example. Today, if any of you have Alexa or Siri on your phone or something like that, you might ask Siri what the weather is. And it'll tell you, right? Hey, the weather's going to be 80 degrees, it might rain. You might ask Siri what the weather is if it were a theory of the mind AI. And what theory might say is, hey, I know that you typically bike to work on Wednesdays, so you might want to bring an umbrella with you today because there might be rain showers early in the morning and then again in the afternoon when you're coming home. So understanding context, understanding the why of when we ask questions is what we're going to get from theory of the mind AI. And finally, this last piece, this self-aware AI. Those of you that are sci-fi fans and know about things like HAL 9000, this is probably what you think of when you think of AI. It's definitely what I think of. So this is AI. It really is very difficult to tell the difference between the AI and a living, breathing, talking human, because it's able to, if not make all the same types of decisions, at least approximate them in a way that's hard to tell the difference. So what are the types of things that we're using AI for? So, AI is all over the place, right? And this isn't new. So we've been using AI for a long, long time. So it started, in the military with different war games and things that we could do there, but it tends to fall into different categories, right? So machine learning is one of the aspects of AI that's most prominent out there. And that's things like deep learning and predictive analytics. We've been doing this for a while, but it's really picking up steam. Speech is another area of AI, and that's both understanding speech and mimicking speech, right? Being able to talk. Vision, so having the capability of using cameras to recognize objects and see the way that we see. Natural language processing, so this is being able to understand language. So different than text to speech or speech to text, where we're converting speech into text. Now we're taking that text, extracting data, classifying data, and understanding what it means. Expert systems are kind of specific purpose AIs, robotics, planning, and optimization. I think those are pretty self-explanatory. So finally, we're going to spend most of the day talking about generative AI and large language models. And this is really what everyone's excited about today, right? So if you've heard of ChatGPT, that's probably the most prominent AI out there in the cloud today. And it's really where we're starting to see more and more use cases and functionality come out of AI in smaller and smaller fractions of time. So generative AI works by using a language model to learn from historical data and then reference that historical data to make future predictions or even create things like images or movies or sound. One of the things that we need to understand is how much data it takes to train some of this generative AI today. And we're getting better at this, so it's becoming more efficient. But as an example, ChatGPT-3 took over 570 gigabytes of text to train. I don't know if anyone's ever seen a gigabyte of text, but you're talking about tens of thousands of pages of text, right? Every movie script ever digitized, every book that's available in the public domain is what you're looking at here in your training sessions. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of conversations that were captured in text and things of that nature. What we're able to get out of that, and I know this is kind of a small window, but are things like you're seeing today if you use Bing Search, where we're able to talk to AI, and it's able to talk back. So that's okay, John, we can go ahead and progress. So let's talk about why everyone is so excited today. And we've got some examples of this, and this slide we'll go ahead and build out for you. So what you're looking at here is a tweet that was made way back in March of 2022. And if you read closely, you can see the prompt that was used, and a prompt is just a way that we talk to our AI, was Donald Trump and Barack Obama playing basketball. So in March of 2022, we gave this prompt, and what we got was the image here on the left. Now, maybe this image has some artistic value. I see something that looks somewhat like Donald Trump. I don't see Barack Obama in this image at all. And I really am not sure if I see a basketball, right? So if you just showed me this image, I probably couldn't guess what the prompt was. Now, 12 months later, in March of 2023, same exact prompt to the same exact AI. And clearly you see Donald Trump, clearly you see Barack Obama, and clearly they are playing basketball. So the pace of innovation here, the pace of progress with AI is accelerating to a point where it continues to become more and more useful on a daily basis. That's really why everyone is getting excited, right? And this was a year ago, guys. I was really hoping that the author of this tweet would have dropped a new one in March of this year. He hasn't yet, but these images would be even better and even more perfect today. So let's talk a little bit about ServiceNow and what they've done historically with AI. So ServiceNow is not new to the AI space. They've been working with AI for over 7 years now. And if you see how that worked, it was a series of acquisitions that they then re-platformed to bring new functionality to the ServiceNow platform itself. And you've seen this with things like virtual agents, performance analytics, predictive intelligence, and all of the different functionality that many of you already own today on the ServiceNow platform. And if you can see here, there are what are we looking at? Maybe 10 different acquisitions over that period of time of companies that were specifically, AI type purchases. Now, if you look at what they've done more recently, it's really how they've begun to start to leverage these generative AI functionalities. And generative AI today, OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, are by far the kind of leader in the space. There are other people out there, but most of the time when people are talking about the advances that are happening, they're talking about OpenAI. So the first thing that ServiceNow did is they said, we're going to give you a way to leverage the different AIs that are out there through ServiceNow via a series of APIs. So they opened this up to OpenAI and Microsoft's flavor of that, Azure AI, which is also based on OpenAI. They are also exploring being able to do the same with Google Cloud. Most people would agree that Google is a little bit behind the others right now and still playing catch up, but it's something that ServiceNow is exploring and being able to pull into the platform as well. The next thing they did is they started developing their own AI models. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next page, but they partnered with companies like NVIDIA and Hugging Face in order to develop their own AI models. If you look at NVIDIA, first of all, almost everybody is using NVIDIA to power the hardware that runs their AI. So NVIDIA has a platform of hardware that basically runs all of the different AIs that are out there. But ServiceNow went a step further than this. They worked with NVIDIA to actually create the model of the AI that is now native to the ServiceNow platform and gives you those native capabilities that we're going to talk about today. So what this means is it's probably a good thing to partner with the manufacturers of the hardware to then go design that software that runs the hardware, and that's exactly what they did. The other thing, remember we talked about how big these large language models need to be in order to really provide you with value? Well, ServiceNow says that they have the largest large language model of enterprise service management use cases in the world. So they took all of this data that they've been collecting over all of these years to create this large but domain-specific AI around their own internal data. So if we look at the ServiceNow AI capabilities, they tend to fall into three different categories. You have service personalization, knowledge synthesis, and content creation. So we'll talk about each one of these capabilities in turn, and then we'll jump into some of the specific features as well. So if we look at knowledge synthesis, what we're really talking about here is some version of summarization. Summarization is something that AI does really, really well. So if you've used something like Bing Search lately, you'll notice that you put in a search and the results of that search are summarized for you in a nice little bullet pointed list towards the top of your search results. So Bing is using OpenAI to go out and collect all of the search results, find the similarities between those search results, and provide a nice handy summary for that to save you time. This is some of what ServiceNow is doing with summarization as well, and it can show up in many different ways. Better search results, it can show up in summarization of case notes, emails, things of that nature. Service personalization. So this is a neat one. This is really about understanding context. So if you've looked at things like ServiceNow's virtual agents today, what you'll see is that they perform really, really well when they're within the context of the experience that we planned. Another example of this would be Alexa, right? So if you ask Alexa a question, and it's a question that she's planned for, then what you'll get are probably pretty good results. But if you ask Alexa a question that she hasn't planned for, what you get is probably something like the top internet result says blah, blah, blah. And it may or may not be relevant to what you're asking. And we see something similar, but with service personalization, AI is able to use those historical examples to do a better understanding of context. And this is what you're seeing here in the screenshot. A customer says, hey, I accidentally ordered a caramel frappe from the wrong store. What do I do? Well, we didn't just return a generalized result here and say, hey, you should probably cancel your order. We pulled up the order for that actual customer. So we were able to understand who that customer was and what order they were talking about to provide a more personalized experience. And finally, language generation. So this is when we're using AI to create new content for us. And you'll see this in things like creating knowledge articles or things like creating AI test cases or use cases and scripts within ServiceNow. This example that we're seeing here is actually one of my favorites. So the way that this works is instead of having to code a script, we just ask AI to code that script for us. We tell it what we want it to do, and it creates an example script. We'll drill down into that a little bit more detail later on in the presentation. So Now Assist, this is something that you're probably going to hear at least 2,000 times if you go to Knowledge this year. This is ServiceNow's branding for all of their new AI functionality. They're calling it Now Assist. What's great is it applies to roles across the platform. As many of you know, ServiceNow is more than just IT service management. We do a lot of things today. And there are Now Assist experiences that work for developers, and there are Now Assist experiences to work for your employees, your customers, your admins, or your service desk agents. So task summarization. This is a pretty good one because it allows you to get value pretty quickly without having a ton of setup. So what this is doing is taking information that we have within fields on a form within ServiceNow and summarizing that information to make it easier to understand at a glance. And there are a lot of use cases that you're going to see for this. It might be as simple as summarizing all of the case notes. So if I'm a new agent and I pull up a case and I need to get, rather than having to read through 50 different entries of case notes that previous agents have put in, I get a nice, neat summary of what has occurred on that case, kind of at a glance. Or it might be, summarizing search results, as we talked about, things like what Bing is doing to give you better search-based information. Another example of this is a summary of knowledge articles. So when you have 5 knowledge articles about the same thing, rather than digging through them, you can get a summary of all of them. Agent assistance is the term that ServiceNow uses for just being able to kind of talk to the AI. So in the same way that you talk to, your Bing chat, or you could talk to ChatGPT today, you could talk to ServiceNow's AI. The big difference here is, remember, this is a domain-specific large language model. So it's going to be a lot better at answering questions about things like IT or HR service delivery than a generalist AI would be. But you're able to kind of interact the same way. You interact with chat, you can talk to it, ask it to do a thing for you, it goes and does that thing. And you're going to see this used in a number of different ways, but one of them is empowering self-service and empowering our agents to give better customer experiences and provide information faster. Content creation through Now Assist. So this is one of the things that we talked about with the creation of knowledge articles as an example. Organizations, and I'm sure many of you on the phone, struggle with creating knowledge articles today. We struggle with creating things like resolution notes. So these are things that AI is actually pretty good at. It can at least get you, 80 to 90% of the way there. So being able to look at one or more cases and say, hey, this is something that maybe we need to create a knowledge article about, and take all of the resolution notes and all of the comments that you've used and put that into a format that's similar to your existing knowledge articles today, kind of well written and written in a way that is more consumable, is something AI is really good at. So you're going to see this kind of content creation throughout, being able to create emails, being able to create knowledge articles. And again, the idea here is it gets you really close to the finish line. Then you're able to look over the knowledge article, make any tweaks, any changes that are necessary before publishing. Actionable answers. So this is being able to have your customers ask questions to AI and get answers back. And you'll see this in a number of different ways. Better search results is one of those ways, but really where I think the experience just is head and shoulders better than it used to be is the virtual agents themselves. As we talked about previously, the current or the past innovation of virtual agents was really built around these experiences. So we would go and we would craft a flow where we tried to predict what people would ask the virtual agent. Hey, someone might want to order something. So when they want to order something, right? We'll search for what it is they're ordering through our catalog of orderable models, and we'll surface one of those results. It worked great as long as we anticipated what they were trying to do. But when they asked a question that we didn't anticipate, either it was generalized search results or we'd say, hey, we're going to connect you to a live agent. They'll figure it out. What we're able to do now is leverage that domain-specific language model to give you much better experiences through that virtual agent when you go off the rails. And then finally, text to code. This is that experience that I was talking about that's one of my favorites, just because it's so simple. So the way this works is when you're writing a script in the platform, I could just put a comment into that script. So you'll see over here on the side, right? If the email is provided, make sure that it's from my domain. If not, abort the action. So rather than having to create that script on your own, Now Assist creates the script in the comments and says, hey, here's what you might use. And maybe you can use it as is. Maybe you've got to make a little bit of variation, but it allows people that maybe aren't as good at coding to code on their own, or people that are really good at coding can speed up their time to getting these things out there through the assistance that's provided with text to code. Assist administration is just how we actually administer all of these new capabilities. So everything that I'm talking about here, you have the ability to install those capabilities either for a specific area within your ServiceNow platform or across the platform. And then you're able to do things like configure those experiences and track analytics about it all through a singular location with Assist administration. And then finally, the AI controller. So really what this is, if you've ever created a flow in ServiceNow, are new actions within your flow that allow the flows to leverage all of this functionality that we're talking about with generative AI. So within that flow, you might create a summary or ask a question to AI and get a return, or maybe leverage some of the coding capabilities, etc. And on that note, now that we're all excited about ServiceNow's capabilities, why don't we talk about what it's going to take by kind of rolling up our sleeves and doing the hard work that it takes to really be able to leverage AI. And Joe can walk you through that.
All right. Thanks, Eros. That was really good. A lot of things I'm going to loop back to and touch on what Eros was talking about. It was about this time last year that we were sitting around looking at ChatGPT and saying to ourselves, something's happened here. Not just in the AI, not just in the technology itself, but the fact that this technology is now democratized. It was in the hands of everybody within the enterprise, within society, within students in school. And that's what OpenAI and ChatGPT did that really changed the landscape. And a tectonic shift happened at that particular time. So we sat down and we started thinking, what is the strategy versus tactics that we need to approach this by? And there's a saying that every strategy is just a tactic of a bigger strategy. So we kept backing up. What is the highest level strategy that we can come at to look at handling this tectonic shift in technology? Because things have now changed. Now, with that said, tactics are important. So strategies without tactics is just a slideshow. Tactics without strategy is potentially harmful. So we developed Mastering Operational AI Transformation Mode. And it's leadership engagement. It's a very, very pragmatic approach that you'll see. And it's really focused in on your AI sovereignty and covering all aspects of your business. And it's really about managing the continual disruption that has started this time last year, and there's no sign of it stopping. And you can see over here on the right, I think most people might recognize what that building is, and that's Blockbuster. And they weren't paying attention to what was going on at the time, and Netflix was. The people at Blockbuster were worried about, moving videos around on the shelf, check-in times, and managing real estate. And they were locked into an old paradigm business model that was slowly or rapidly dying in that case because Netflix came in and upset that whole model. Go on. So what we have, and I've never seen this before. I've been looking at emerging technologies since the mid '80s, PCs, CAD, GIS. I've never seen a technology bring this much emotion out in people, both within the IT and technology space and business space and just regular society. There's a lot of emotion and there's a lot of noise out there on AI and generative AI. And we have doomers and utopians on either side of this equation that are at war with each other. And honestly, we see them within the enterprises as well. People that want nothing to do with this technology because they feel uneasy about it. And then the other people that see a future of unlimited possibilities and working 2 hours a week and things like that. So there's a lot of emotions around this technology, and what we're here to do is help separate out some of that signal and noise. But with that, the thing that we're really up against is not the technology, it's the velocity of change. And that's what we're seeing with, especially with this technology. Now, we've always dealt with that in technology, the velocity of change. We've all been seeing that. But what happened this time last year is that the AI velocity just went through the roof. The problem is that organizational change is difficult. It's very difficult. And we put together Moat, this collection of frameworks and this methodology and this approach to help bridge that gap between the two. Now, if you look at it, this time last year, we were just doing basic prompts. Now, today, like Eros kind of pointed out with the imagery of where we're at today. Today, on the LLM side, we are doing multi-agent, multi-model collaborative teams where we're dividing the AI up into multiple personalities and personas to do work for us. But Moat is really about taking these elements right here and many, many more and putting a moat around your enterprise to make sure that you're protected, that you have AI sovereignty, and that you're in control of your AI destiny, and more importantly, or as importantly, your business destiny and the moat around your business. So with that, we start all of our conversations with clients around what's your maturity curve look like? Where are you entering the space? Our awareness? Are you transformational? 1 through 5. Where do you fall? And what we're seeing is most companies are somewhere this year around level 2, level 3, approaching it over there. We've had some companies come to us and say, hey, man, we're negative awareness. We have no idea what this thing means or where it's going. Regardless of where you're at in your maturity curve, the great thing about working for a solution integrator is that we have something to support you, to assist you, to be a partner with you every step of the way. And really what we're talking about is that the technology and the AI, as I've been saying, is a little bit downstream. On the Moat side of the house, from a business strategy standpoint, we're looking at the business impact. And this AI, like I mentioned, is democratized. It's in every department, and every group within your enterprise is getting value out of it. They're getting value out of it right now today via Shadow AI, whether you know it or not. People are using this, and people's roles and their value proposition is changing because you're finding surprising skills and competencies that maybe you didn't notice them before, or they were underrated, or they didn't find their niche. The one thing to remember about this AI is that English is now the hottest new programming language because of prompt engineering, which is really important to note. Prompts are applications. When you really dig into advanced prompt engineering, they are small applications that you can do an awful lot with right out of the box with the large language models. But our approach is the business impact. And what does it mean to your shareholders, your investors, your constituents, those people that are stakeholders in your business? And we approach it from that angle first. But it's all about the ultimate business trajectory is all different now, the rapid and consistent acceleration of change, and there's a level playing field. So the people that you maybe didn't consider competitors yesterday are now competitors today because they have now productivity multipliers where 5 people can do the work of 50, 60, maybe even 100 people that weren't able to do that before. And those people are leveraging the AI. Like it's been quoted by IBM, AI won't take jobs. People who use AI will take jobs from those who don't use AI. And it's all about a global competitive landscape advantage. So in creating, to create change, this is John Cotter's change methodology. This is the gold standard in change management. And what we have here is the 8 steps required for effective organizational change. And we really believe this is what's needed right now because the AI is really changing markets, economies, how we go to markets, changing our products and services. It's changing how we do work internally. It touches everything. But what happens is most people want to start number 5, empower action. Start with a use case. Let's start building something. How do we make it work? And it's great that Eros went over that at the beginning because now you have some ideas of how you can operationalize the AI right now today with ServiceNow. So we've kind of put the checkbox there, but let's back up now and let's go to internally from a leadership perspective. Let's make sure we understand the urgency, create a coalition, a solid coalition that we can plan and organize with, and then develop a vision and strategy. From there, that will define steps 4 through 8, and then we can move forward with success. And this is where Moat lives in steps 1, 2, and 3. So one of the tools that we use, we have a couple different tools that we use to help you manage your strategy once you get it, once you get your vision. And this has been really popular, I believe, with everyone that we've shown it to. And this is our Moat reference architecture. It's an AI reference architecture that the Moat team put together. And what you'll see here is we have security running across the top here because that touches everything. Everything's going to start with security. There's governance and policies that you get on the security side need to be established, which I'm sure all of you or most of you already have in place or you're at least talking about. how are we going to control this new technology and make sure that our intellectual property is safe and secure? Then we get into the pillars: people, strategy, data, administration, solution. And each one of these categories is clearly defined in our overall framework. Let's take data, for example, and we'll take a look at the data pillar and practice. And as we go down, you'll see that we have several different dimensions of the data practice. And this is what we use in our reference architecture. And each one of these has multiple aspects to them, like, for instance, data privacy, access control, data encryption. And each one of these get a score for whether it's in place, somewhat in place, or not in place at all. Based upon this collective score for the data privacy, in this particular example, if we move on, you'll see it goes into the overall reference architecture. And then this is where you get your roadmap. So all that strategic thinking, now we have to make it actionable. The reference architecture is this way to assess the current state. And as we move forward in our AI transformation, how are we doing? How is the progress being made? And it's a very simple and elegant dashboard to look at for everyone from leadership all the way through the organization to get a beat on where they're at currently. Obviously, things in red needs a lot more work. Things in yellow are somewhat in place. And obviously, things in green, they're in place. We don't need to worry about them as much. Just make sure that they're operating efficiently. But this is your roadmap to success with AI transformation in your organization, because it's a holistic problem. So the next framework, set of frameworks that we use is focused around use cases and how to manage use cases. And they've been broken down into three basic buckets of quick wins, differentiating use cases, and transformational use cases. And under quick wins, we have things like ServiceNow. Everything that Eros was talking about in ServiceNow, that's operational now, that you can get a very quick win and get value and return and productivity multipliers out of AI today with ServiceNow. There's also prompt engineering with the LLMs, directly with the LLMs, Microsoft Copilot, and then secured environment for ChatGPT. So your employees can do free-form chat instead of going to ChatGPT or one of those open source or openly available AI systems. You want to secure an environment where your employees can get their individual productivity enhancements at that level. And then there's, of course, RAG, which is augmenting the AI with documents like Word documents, spreadsheets, and so on. The differentiating use cases and transformative ones, these are much bigger. These take more time to roll out. We're going to do more integrations. We have data hygiene, data governance, application development, infrastructure needs that come into all of these things, platform integrations that continue on. And you'll see ServiceNow is in these differentiating and transformational use cases at all. The SNS is marked here. ServiceNow follows you throughout your whole journey, wherever you go in your transformative use cases. Let's go to the next slide and see what this means. So here's what we have. With the differentiating and transformational use cases, they are great. Their ROI is incredible. They're very foundational to your business. But you got to remember that the idea that we think of here at the very beginning of this scale in month 0 over here, that sounds really good, and it sounds transformational how we're using the AI. But the rate of obsolescence, which is due to the rate of acceleration in AI development, the obsolescence rate drops very quickly. So we got to keep in mind that there's a high probability where this transformational or differentiating use case becomes, I don't want to say obsolete, but perhaps underwhelming in light of the current day AI 17 months out or 24 months out. That current day AI will most certainly be way beyond what you thought of today. So what we recommend in parallel, definitely chase these, definitely do these differentiating transformational use cases. But most certainly, almost a requirement is to work on this long tail and these quick wins. Knock these things out, because a couple things happen with this. First, you're going to get immediate value. You're going to get the immediate productivity value out of this right away. Also, because these quick wins cut across every single department, you're going to create an AI culture. You're going to have all those people in the different departments, whether it be marketing, sales, finance, HR, legal, which is very important, and security, all with their use cases being met. However small they might be, they're getting value. You're starting to create an AI culture. And then that ideation loops back on itself, where they come back to you with more value propositions and productivity multipliers. And we take all those use cases, is what we do, is we take all the use cases that you have in our use case identification, and we distill those down into a backlog, essentially. And we prioritize them. In this particular case, we're just showing you a smaller version of the analysis, where we're just looking at business value and complexity and mapping those to a chart. So obviously, from a backlog standpoint, you'd probably want to knock off those things with the highest business value with the least amount of complexity and get those out to production sooner, and then just work against that prioritization roadmap. Now, there's other dimensions to this that we get into in terms of solution triaging. What solution bucket do they go into? Is it regular chat GPT? Just let people have at it with that use case and not worry about it. Is it a secure environment that you need? Is it an application that you need? Is it a ServiceNow use case that we can quickly and easily operationalize in ServiceNow? So this is just at a high level what we're doing on the use case identification. And here we have just an overview of some of our deliverables from this overall moat engagement. So you see the reference architecture. We have the design thinking use case ideation where we pull cross-functional teams together on your side to help ideate around starting off with 60, 70 ideas, and we distill it down to the best out of those, and we start putting those into the backlog, into the chart, to an executive order checklist to make sure that you're compliant with whatever the government's doing in terms of governance on their side. You want to make sure that you're at least doing due diligence to those executive orders to protect yourself. A use case library, right now it's about 250 and growing, which is across the whole organization, not just IT use cases, but everything from finance to marketing to operations. Operational use cases are in this library. And then a decision matrix AI platform. And then here we just have the roadmap to success. The moat roadmap should start with leadership alignment and planning. That we want to move into an exploratory committee workshop if you need it, a steering committee if you need it, or a center of excellence activation if you need it. A lot of companies are standing up their own AI center of excellence, which is awesome and great to see that they're doing that organized fashion. Our input on that is to make it as cross-functional as possible, not just owned within IT and security, but invite the other departments into it, invite sales, invite marketing, invite HR to get their ideas on this. But most of all, what you get coming out of leadership and alignment is a series of quick wins, among those being ServiceNow that has all those operational quick wins for you ready to go.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, so now maybe we could drill down a little bit into getting ready specifically within ServiceNow. And this is something that we're able to do in conjunction with Joe's assessment or as a standalone, depending on where you're at organizationally. So if we look at what the value journey looks like today around ServiceNow, the first thing that we need to start with is AI readiness. So that's getting ready to leverage the AI functionality that exists. And a great way to do that is with that mode assessment with a specifically added ServiceNow focus to it, or we could do a standalone ServiceNow assessment. And what we're trying to do here is to understand where you're at, to understand how ready you are and what you need to do to get ready if you're not quite there yet. The next thing is what we're going to call core AI capabilities. So these are capabilities that many of you already own within the platform. So no new licensing required, no need to buy the new functionality. There's functionality the new functionality is built upon that many of you have not implemented yet. So those are things like the different virtual agent experiences, predictive analytics, bootstrap test management. A lot of functionality, AI-based functionality exists on the platform. It's just not been implemented or rolled out or isn't being used. And we're trying to get the maximum value by rolling out the things that you have before asking you to buy new things. And then finally, the last piece of that puzzle is all of this new functionality that we talked about today. So that you can get this advanced AI functionality, and it really builds upon what we do in the other two steps of the journey here. Might there be times where we jump ahead and give you some of the advanced functionality right away? Yeah, that might make sense for some organizations, but generally this is how we see the world and the steps that you need to take to get there. So where do you start? We have a ServiceNow specific AI readiness workshop and roadmap. And as I said, this can be done in conjunction with the moat assessment if you're trying to get a generalized AI roadmap for your entire organization, or it can be done standalone if you only want that roadmap specifically for ServiceNow. What we look at when we build these roadmaps are kind of three things: the people, the process, and the technology itself. We look at how those three different sectors map to the dependencies that you need to get to the desired outcomes that you're trying to get to based on that AI functionality. We use that to then create a 3, 6, and 12-month roadmap. where we figure out how to most efficiently get to those outcomes. What should come first? What should come second? What should come third? How do we get those quick wins that Joe talked about? And how do we get them in those different increments? And then finally, we create an action plan, which is a joint action plan for you and CDW, where we try and maximize your time to value, and we try to do that cost effectively. So that might mean that you're doing some of these things, we're doing some of the things, you're doing it all of them on your own. We try and parse that out in the way that makes the most sense. So what kind of outcomes could you expect? Well, here's an example. So here are some outcomes that you can look at specifically for ITSM, but we have outcomes here for ITSM, for HR, for CSM, across the platform. And if you look at these, you've got an outcome. In the explanation, you'll see the specific piece of AI functionality that's used. And then you can also see the improvement that we expect and the metric to be look at to see if we can get that improvement. So these are the types of outcomes that we're going to be looking to guide you through on that roadmap and in this journey. And why don't we drill down specifically into one of those outcomes? So on the previous screen, one of the things that we talked about was the AI function of auto-summarizing incidents for transfer. So before I transfer an incident from one group to another, I create an auto-summarization so that that new group that receives that incident can quickly get up to speed and provide value as quickly as possible to our customers or our employees. Well, if you look at that, there are three things that need to be in place in order for us to get that functionality. So from a people perspective, in this case, it looks like this customer was ready from a people perspective. They have both the service desk people and the IT groups. They're transferring things today, so they're comfortable with transfers. So they don't need necessarily to hire or train new people. But from a process perspective, they're not quite there yet. So if you look at the process, the way that they're doing those transfers today is just through email. So there really isn't any process in place today for doing that through the incident record, and they're transferring to specific individuals. So to get the most value, they need to be able to transfer to groups and to make the assignments to whoever is available. And then finally, from the technology perspective, there's still some things that they need to implement in order to get this functionality. They're not really using AI workspaces today, which is the best way to interact with these summarizations. And they also haven't rolled out the mobile app, so none of their field IT groups would be able to participate in these transfers with the summaries today. So, if you look at it, it's not just rolling out the auto summarization functionality that exists in AI. It's the core technology functionalities, people, and processes that need to be in place for you to get the value out of them. So we would do this for all of the different outcomes that you're looking for, all of the different dependencies on those outcomes. You would get something similar to this, which we would then use to create those roadmaps and create those action plans. And on that note, I'm going to pass it back to John so he can wrap it up for us.
Perfect. And yeah, thanks, Eros, for that and giving us a quick look at what the AI ServiceNow workshop and roadmap program that we have looks like. And for everybody on the call, let me just sum up those two different things you saw there. On the left is what Joe was talking about, a high-level mastering operational AI transformation assessment. And he walked you through what that could look like and feel like and what the goals are of that, right? Much higher level, much all-encompassing. What Eros just talked about is specific for ServiceNow customers. It's going to focus on the ServiceNow platform, look for the low-hanging fruit, create a plan there that's got both tactical and strategic elements. In a perfect world, both of these work hand in hand, right? We're doing the mastering operational AI transformational assessment, followed by, and then ServiceNow's readiness workshop and roadmap, leveraging the higher level mandates and decisions that are made there. So those are two things that we talked about there. And for folks that have been, asking in the chat a little bit here about, hey, getting copies of these slides, I'm going to share something I shared at the very beginning. When this meeting closes out momentarily, you will get a survey popping up on the right. One of the questions is, do you want a copy of the deck? So just check yes, no there. But if you could take 30 seconds and just answer those questions we have, it's going to help us make these sessions better. We also want to know about what content you're interested. Are you going to Knowledge 23? Can we meet you there? And make sure you get invited to our events. So it's the one ask we have for the very large group that's on today. If you can answer that survey, we'll make sure you get the stuff you're looking for. And we've been able to answer questions in chat as we've been going today. But if you have questions after this, just hit reply to the email invite you got, the thing that's on your calendar right now, and ask us questions. We'll get that email to the right place. Make sure you guys are well taken care of with that. So on that note, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. Hang on just for a minute, because as we close this meeting out, that survey will pop up, and really look forward to your feedback as part of our continuous improvement program here. Thanks so much, everybody.